of you have helped in so many ways, and I just can't tell you how it fills my heart to see this room full. And I know Phil would just love it.
Yeah.
Just love it. So I think the person that gets the prize for having come the longest way is his cousin Nikki, who wanted to say a few words.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
From Kansas. Okay, as you were told, I'm Phillip Wesley Briscoe. I never called him Phil. It was Phillip and Thurston. I was his brother. I'm just going to give you this is just a, don't worry about that. I'm going to do like I had a little higher.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Tell you like a professor I had in class, he said, make it like a hospital gown. Make it long enough, well, let me get it straight now. Make it short enough to be interesting, but long enough to cover the subject. Phillip and Thurston were the sons of Madeline and Alfonso Briscoe. They were the last two Briscoe families in Kansas. In 1862, their great-grandfather homesteaded in Kansas. That was 1 year after Kansas became the 34th state in the Union. Alfonso, his father, was the 8th child of the family. Madeline was the 6th child of a child of the Williams family. Madeline lived in Hutchinson, Kansas, and Alfonso was in Great Bend, two rivals. Between the two families, there was 22 first cousins, and I'll explain that to you in a little bit. This was a significant for me as a cousin. I'm the last of 6 kids. My oldest brother was 20 years old when I was born. So by the time I was old enough to realize they were gone, they were out. I had 2 brothers married, and one had a child a year after I was born. So my family was, after that, was consist of girls. So when Phillip and Thurston came over, I was really happy I had someone to play with. After Phillip and Thurston's parents passed, their cousins took the place as brothers and sisters. This is where it became real significant. Whenever Phillip would come to town, he'd always call me, Mickey and cousin Pat, can I come by? And he always did that. Thurston was the same. Whenever they came to town, they made sure to stop by. So they were more like brothers than my older brothers, because they didn't have time for me. I moved to Wichita in '64. So I had a bunch of brothers and sisters and cousins that lived in Hutchinson. So he'd go by and see each and every one of them every time he came to town. No matter what happened, he's going to see all of them. And he'd always share that information with me. There's a little excerpt that he gave me. It's a photo I want to share with you. But before we get to that, he sent me pictures of him in China, in Vietnam, and in Africa, where he had gone. And I just found out today that he had donated some money to a school in Africa, and I didn't know about it. I've seen some pictures where he's in that now and then. I didn't know about that either. So he kept some secrets from me. But he was a great cousin, a great cousin. And I emphasize that because out of the 22 that was born, there's just 2 of us left now. I lost Thurston in 1921. I lost my brother Danny in 1922. And now I lost Thurston, Phillip in 1923. So there's 3 of them that's gone. There's 2 of us left, my sister and I. So at this time I'd like to say to Louise, when I found out that you were going to marry Phillip, I told Phillip, I said, I'll be there. That was 30-some years ago, and I remember it real well because it was on Halloween night. And Thurston and I, after the wedding, we went downtown, and everyone thought we were part of an act, but it was the wedding. So congratulations, Louise, on taking care of Phillip for all those years, and I appreciate it. My prayers go out to you and your family. Thank you.
One of the great passions of Phil's life was his tai chi, and we have several members of his tai chi brotherhood here, including their leader, who will share some memories.
So I knew Phil as a student, and it was wonderful to have heard so many things about other aspects of his life. I first met Phil in 1977. My teacher had asked me to move to Olympia to open a tai chi school there. And Phil showed up soon after. We'd rented an old Tudor house that the school was in. Phil was teaching at Evergreen State College. And later I moved back to Seattle to continue my studies, studying Chinese at University of Washington, and then I went off to Taiwan. I was in Taiwan for a year and a half. When I got back, my mother put a personal ad in the paper saying that I was back and teaching Tai Chi again, and the first person to show up was Phil. So, actually, going back to Olympia, 2 vivid memories I have of visiting his place in Olympia was a pyramid, which was all the rage then to have a pyramid and put fruit underneath it or set something underneath it, and a pile of Howard the Duck comic books. So at our school, the Tao Studies Institute, Phil often came early to do his own practice. And the school was open, and many of the students, he was the first person that they met. He greeted them and welcomed them to the school. Not long before a school trip to China, Phil injured his ankle, but he really wanted to go, and so he came. He worked hard at getting it rehabilitated and came to China. And we practiced Tai Chi in Beijing and then went off to Qingshan Mountain. And when the day that we were actually going to be climbing the mountain, I was sure that he was going to stay behind, but he wasn't going to do that. So he got two porters that carried a sedan chair to carry him up. So, well, yeah. It was 2 at a time. They tag teamed. They tag teamed up and down the mountain. So when it came time to get on the cable car, he got in the cable car and we went up. And we got to the top, And they were sitting there resting, waiting for us to get there, ready to keep going that day. So Phil started studying Chinese, and then he joined a small class studying the Liturgy, which happened every Monday night for 4 years. Is that how long it's been going on? 5 years. 5 years. So virtually every Monday night, and when COVID came, then it went to Zoom and just kept going. So Phil was in classical Earth Constitution, so the Chinese term. So he didn't do things quickly, but he was unstoppable.
Yeah.
And so Phil continued to progress in his practice, and it was really wonderful to see things that he got in the last few years, that he made huge breakthroughs in the last few years. And several of them, I found out that he'd made the breakthrough when I heard him telling somebody else about it, teaching somebody else about it. So, Phil was genuine, stubborn, methodical, gregarious, easy to laugh. I heard someone talking about his sense of humor. I'd love to hear someone talk more about his sense of humor, because I'm a punster and he always just groaned. He hated puns. So, anyway, Phil, like a broad river, often quiet on the surface, concealing a powerful current underneath. His steady, inexorable presence will be remembered and cherished by all of you. Thank you.
Phil's long-term barber, Randy, would like to speak next. I can't remember if we had a picture in the slide set about, was there?
Yes.
Randy, bless his heart, in Phil's last weeks, came over and trimmed up his beard on the back porch.
First, my condolences to the family, all of you that didn't know me. Louise knew me, but a lot of you didn't know who I was. Phil and I have been friends since 1977. And all the trips he took, my haircuts was everywhere. That's when he had hair and didn't have hair. So I felt as though I was on every trip. China, Africa, Vietnam, I was on every trip. Matter of fact, even us being here today, it brings back memories, because I celebrated my 30th year in my anniversary in the business of barbering, and Phil was here for my 30th year anniversary, and he sat right here. So I see it's so spiritual for me to be a part of this and to see how many people's lives he touched. I love seeing this, because it's like I couldn't miss being here for his homegoing. It was very important for me to be a part of that, because I've been a part of his life so long. I knew about his cousin, I knew about his brother, I knew about things in Kansas, I knew things that everybody don't even know. The barbershop man knows it all. He knows it all. Phil gave my granddaughter, my daughter, her first job at 16. She's 52 now. And Phil and I are only a year apart. And I was, is it Mickey? I was his brother here. I was the one that got all the personal conversations here. I was closer to him here than any of his other friends were. I felt, because I knew it all. The tai-chi man. I knew about his lessons. I knew when he was late for class or when he had to be there on time and the whole bit. I knew it all. But I just wanted to say, I'm so proud to be a part of his life. I'm so proud to be here to celebrate this going home with you, Louise. I'm so proud to be able to say, damn, he had a good life. And he met some good people. And thank you very much for listening.
I'd like to invite anyone else who'd like to share stories about Phill to just come up and help themselves to the microphone.
Hi, Tom Brisk. Known Phill through a volleyball game that was hosted originally by T.H. David Paul at the O'Banion, was it O'Banion's? O'Banion's Tavern down in Roosevelt next to Dante's. Any local bar flies around you? No? College kids, Dante's? Yeah. And, what? Okay, bye. So these guys gotta go, so let's give them a hand. All right, safe driving. All right. Tom, good job. Oh, got it. Yeah, very good. So anyway, volleyball. That game had gone on for 30 years, something like that, or more. And eventually, Karen over here, Karen Jones, took it over. She was working at a school over near Northgate. Every Tuesday night, we'd play volleyball. And after that, we'd go down to either Teddy's Tavern and play dominoes, shoot darts, drink excessively, well, moderately, or over to Scarlet Tree, hear some blues on a Tuesday night. There's a blues jam there. So yeah, we ended up at their wedding because we were buds from the volleyball game, and thankfully as at you guys' wedding, that was great. But I'd like to do a couple Phill impersonations, if I may. So now I'll do the look second. So we play dominoes, and if you play double six dominoes, if you lock the other person out, and there's dominoes sitting in the boneyard, you gotta pick them up until you can play, which is points against you if you can't get rid of them. So I lock up Phill. Boom. He looks at his hand and he goes, let's see if he knows. No! And then expletives would follow that. And then, so at the volleyball game, I'm always cutting them grief and kidding with them, and I'm a real joker. My sense of humor can go beyond what is socially acceptable. So bear with me. So he didn't show up for a couple weeks, right? And he's about ready to serve, bounce, 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 bounce. And I said, Phill, I haven't seen you for a while. Where you been? He said, I was in Hawaii. And I said, yep, looks like you got some sun. And the Phill look. That stopped the game. Anyway, you missed your brother. Thank you.
As you know, Phill touched many lives, and there's some people that would have loved to be here, but unfortunately, because of work, was not able to make it. And one of them is Liz, who lives, I guess, in this neck of the woods. So this is what she would like to share with you. So she says that Phill was always very welcoming and generous. She made the school feel like home every time she walked in and saw his giant smile, or scowl, which somehow felt like a smile anyway. So let's see, one of her favorite memories of Phil is when he drove her home once after class, and apparently he was telling her about curling. And so she asked what made him decide to take up curling, which seemed like a rather unusual thing to do. And he smiled and said he was just trying to be more interesting to impress Louise. So that's one of the things about Phil I loved. He treasured his family. And I always complained that every time I turn around, you're going off somewhere else. And he was always going up to Vancouver to visit. And he would have family coming in at all times. And so he really embodied what a family man was. And every summer they would, Louise and Phil would go down to the Oregon coast, I think, every summer. And so I always complained to him about him missing class, because we would practice together, we'd go to class together. And, he was, in terms of Taoism, we call companions of the way, and he was a companion. He was a very genuine person. Whether he was happy or he was something bothering him, he was very genuine. And so hearing all these stories about him makes me miss him even more. Thank you.
My name is Jorgé Rivera. Most of you don't know me, but I met Phil in '72 when he came to Ellensburg, and I'm in college. Never took any of his classes, but we became rapid friends. I can tell you that Phil not only was the best man at my wedding, my son's godfather, but a friend, a mentor, and a confidant for me. So I can tell you, we traveled, we did Bob Marley twice at the Paramount when he first played here in 1975, and I dragged him to every other reggae concert, that Ace Records in Ellensburg. We went climbing, not very far. We liked to camp. Beer-battered pancakes were always a favorite. In the morning, tended to slow the rest of the day down. In the early 70s, we went to a Halloween party in Ellensburg of the college students. I went as Fidel Castro, since I'm Cuban, that seemed appropriate. Phil went in full African headdress gear. There are pictures out there. I don't have one, but I have it in my mind. Another time I needed to be gone, so I asked Phil to babysit. Very simple situation. I have a cat, a girlfriend. Her and I took off. I forgot to tell Phil that I had a guest. Doesn't speak English. Phil doesn't speak Spanish. So I get back Sunday afternoon, and I said, how was the weekend? Fine. I asked Danielle, how was the weekend? Bien, fino. It turns out they spent the whole weekend at one of the bars in Ellensburg, pretty much being fine. So, there's a lot of stories. When I got into playing music, there's some pictures out front. Phil would follow my bands around. He enjoyed live music. We enjoyed the concerts. And just spending time. He taught me how to play the dominoes and whist that the black people played. As a Cuban, I showed him how to play Cuban dominoes. So Phil would win, and I would win. It was a good relationship. Clear until just a few weeks of his passing, we communicated. I was a person he visited regularly. I didn't know his family here, but I got to know Thurston when he visited. Phil was involved a lot with what I was doing in my travels, in and out of the country and other things. Phil traveled with me sometimes, and I traveled with him sometimes. What I can say, though, is and this came to me a long time ago. Little background, I came here in the early 60s from Havana, ended up with a elderly family in the Tri-Cities. They were homesteaders in their background, and they gave me a lesson that it turned out it fit Phil. They said, if you trusted someone, loved someone, and respected them, he was a man to ride the river with. And I want to tell you, Phill Briscoe, for me, was a man to ride the river with. Thank you.
Thanks for, good to see that guy, because Phil was my second dad. So I had my white dad, my black dad from about 10 till 18. And but I remember going out to Ellensburg and listening to the music. And so it was cool to have that in my life to get the funk from Phil. So I put together a playlist, and we'll play that a little bit later, but thanks for coming down and just miss him. So it's cool to have kind of a diverse family and see people's faces when I went to the baseball park with this big black dude. And so we had a lot of good times and learned a lot from him. I imagine it can be pretty hard to raise a hellion like me, who's an entrepreneur throwing keggers and teaching other kids how to be entrepreneurs. So thanks for helping me grow, Phil. And so I'll play some music tonight, and nice to meet y'all. Thanks.